Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to the channel. It is 5:14 a.m. East Coast time, Saturday, August 24th, and we have 7 games today in the NFL, but a 6-game slate that I'll be breaking down for Draftkings, for FanDuel, for Fantasy Draft, wherever you'll be playing tonight. I got up at 3 in the morning today. Yes, 3 a.m. East Coast time to make sure to get enough time to research this slate as well as the full 6-game WNBA slate. So make sure to check out that video as well. And if you are interested in my tiers and rankings for the NFL, that will be linked down below. So welcome to the channel if you are new here. 1, it's the NFL. 2, it's the weekend, the Saturday. So we're going to get a lot of viewership on this video, a lot of new viewership. So I do appreciate it. If you appreciate this work, if you get any value from this work, if you could hit that subscribe button, it takes us a couple seconds out of your time, and also the notification bell to be notified of when I go live. I'm going to be going live, or not live. Well, I'm going to be going live tonight around 5 o'clock, 5:30 for these games. So make sure to check that out with any later questions because there's going to be a lot of changing news. So subscribe button, like button, notification bell, all that stuff. And then also I have my NFL Daily Fantasy course down below. You can check that out. Everything I know about daily fantasy sports, building spreadsheets, modeling, pretty much how to build your bankroll, win money playing daily fantasy sports. It's not no gimmick. Everybody in it so far has been getting a lot of knowledge from it. And then also down below is going to be my overall tiers on Patreon. So again, huge slate today, lots of things that are going to be moving pieces in terms of figuring out playing time as the day goes on for some of the starters. We already have some news on that, but we're definitely going to get some more. So those tiers will be updated throughout the day. Seems like a lot of people, look, the cash cow of NFL season is the preseason. That's where you're going to make your most money in terms of return on investment. It's going to be the best during that time because nobody else can do this research at 3 in the morning this diligently. And again, I'm sharing it on YouTube for free, but the actual tiers on my interest ranked will be down below. So all that's out of the way. Make sure to hit the subscribe button. Check me out on Twitter at SalVetriDFS with any questions or just some of the things that I tweet there. So a lot of things to talk about, 6-game slate. We'll go through it all, and you're going to see my wide receiver board is going to have about 20 interests, so I'm not going to go through all those, but we'll go through the rest of the positions pretty diligently. Starting at the quarterback position, look, the Z means, if it's in Z, it means yellow. I have some interest. Look, Sam Darnold, he's only had 7 snaps or 7 attempts each of the first 2 games. If for some reason they bump his snap count up or his overall playing time to 2 quarters today, like some players are going to get, then yeah, I have more interest. But it's tough for me to have interest when we're about to talk about 2 guys on the slate who are going to play potentially a half or more. So Patrick Mahomes, they were supposed to play about a quarter and a half last week. According to Andy Reid, they did not because of 1, the weather, and then 2, the offense was just stalling because they were seeing some defensive fronts that they were not expecting to see. So they didn't want Mahomes out there with some linemen who weren't kind of seasoned and or were not expecting to see those fronts. So they just said they take them out. The weather delay also kind of contributed to that. No news yet on what they're going to do with the starters, but I expect a quarter and a half to 2 quarters out of the KC starters today based on last week because that was the game plan and they weren't able to do that. Took them out after, I think, 2 drives. So yeah, Mahomes is clearly in play today if he's going to get anywhere near a half. But just like we saw last night when Baker Mayfield was supposed to get a half and Josh Allen, and those quarterbacks are worse than Mahomes, although Mayfield is a good quarterback, and so is Josh Allen. But yeah, he's going to get a good amount of run. Lots of those guys are going to be in play today. Keep an eye on my tiers later in the day. We'll update those. Jimmy Garoppolo, this is the play right now. It's the obvious play in my opinion. Going up against Kansas City 1, so a weaker defensive opponent. He's going to play, they already said, Shanahan said he's going to play the whole first quarter or whole first half and into the third quarter. So he's playing a whole first half likely and then into the third quarter potentially. Yeah, it's just obvious. If you're going to get Jimmy G and any quarterback to play 2 quarters in the preseason is fantastic. I don't care that Jimmy G looked terrible in his 1 or 2 drives last week. I don't care. He's Jimmy G. He has a skill set, and also he's better than all the other backups that are going to be playing 2 quarters. So yes, Jimmy G is clearly in play. Chad Kelly is also going to be a very nice play today. So Indy is not going to play Andrew Luck. They don't even know if he's playing week 1. Very bad news actually for Indy is that Jacoby Brissett's not going to play, meaning that he's their QB1 for probably week 1. Andrew Luck is trending more downward and downward. If you're drafting, I would not touch Eric Ebron. I would not touch Marlon Mack, maybe a little bit of Marlon Mack. I would not touch T.Y. Hilton because Andrew Luck, this thing could linger a very long time because they don't even know what's happening with him, and it seems like they're kind of taking the precautions to make Jacoby Brissett not play in the preseason because he's going to be the QB1. So that's going to give more snaps to a couple guys. Chad Kelly, who has looked good so far this preseason, had 17 attempts last week. It's also Phillip Walker out there. He also had 17 attempts last week. I don't have as much interest in him, although he played more snaps. 43% of the snaps for Walker last week. Chad Kelly, 33%. I just like the overall upside and skill more for Chad Kelly. Walker and Kelly should split the entire game, a half for each of them. So there's a good amount of run there for them to actually have interest. But again, Garoppolo, Patrick Mahomes, going to be playing similar to more run. You have to go there. Taysom Hill is a guy who actually can kind of compete with the Patrick Mahomes, with the Jimmy Garoppolo in terms of like what he can do in his playing time. So Drew Brees is likely to play this game. We'll have to see. But Taysom Hill has just been an absolute baller in the preseason. Just on the ground alone, he has 11 attempts for 98 yards. Like he's averaging 9 yards per rush as a quarterback in the preseason. He also has 3 passing touchdowns. So his overall ceiling is just huge due to his rushing upside. If Drew Brees doesn't play today, Taysom Hill most likely plays the entire second half once again. And a whole second half of Taysom Hill against second, third, and fourth stringers with his rushing upside is very similar to maybe even better upside than playing a Jimmy G for a first half or Patrick Mahomes for 4 to 5 drives. And I get it. You're going to say, oh, Sal thinks Patrick Mahomes is better than Taysom. No, I don't. Like, don't think about it that way. Think about it as Taysom Hill is coming in the second half, which so much more rushing upside against worse opponents. And it's just been balling out. And in that second half, and he played in a little bit of the second quarter last week. If Drew Brees doesn't play, he's looking at potentially like 8 drives to 9 drives, where you're going to be getting like 4 to 5 out of Patrick Mahomes today, as long as those drives are average length drives. So that's all I'm talking about there. And then lastly, or I guess there's a couple more guys. So Denver, Drew Lock is going to be out. Joe Flacco is probably not going to be playing. So the only active quarterbacks on this Denver roster right now are Brett Rypien and Kevin Hogan, who is starting. They're probably each going to play 2 quarters. I have no interest in Kevin Hogan starting. We know who he is. He is terrible. Brett Rypien coming in the second half against backups. That gives me some interest. So some interest in Rypien. There's a lot of quarterbacks to choose from. Joe Webb, Deshaun Watson, I don't expect to play much. A.J. McCarron is most likely still out today. So Joe Webb will continue to play 2+ quarters in the preseason. Just now, he's probably not as valuable compared to the other quarterbacks because you can see there's a lot of guys likely to play 2 quarters today. So just summing it up, Patty Mahomes, Garoppolo, Kelly, Hill, Webb, and Rypien are all in line to play 2+ quarters today. And Jimmy, or actually, all in line to play 2+ quarters outside of Mahomes. Mahomes, it's in the air right now, but he probably plays at least 1.5 quarters. Jimmy G, they're saying 2 quarters to potentially even 3 quarters or into the third. Have to like that. And Taysom Hill has upside playing in the second half, potentially the whole entire second half. So that's where quarterback's at right now. It seems like Jimmy G stands out. Seems like Patrick Mahomes stands out in Taysom Hill. Running backs. So you can see lots of interest at running back. It's a 6-game slate. What can I tell you? And we're still waiting on injury news. So I'll talk about quickly the guys that I have some potential interest in and kind of pick ones out. So David Montgomery, the hype machine himself. There's a couple of running backs garnering a ton of hype in the preseason. Before preseason even started in camp, Montgomery has probably been the one who sustained that hype the most, as he should. He looks like a monster. But keep in mind, there's a lot of running backs on this slate and a lot of running backs who are going to get more work than Montgomery today. He is their number 1 running back. They already said that they're not going to give Tariq Cohen as much work in the passing game. David Montgomery is going to get goal line work. He's going to get 3-down work. They haven't even been using Mike Davis all that much in the preseason, even in camp. They don't really care about Davis all that much. So Montgomery is like their prized possession, this rookie. He is not going to get that much run today. I don't think he is. He had 6 touches week 1, 3 in the air, 3 on the ground. He did not play last week. I imagine him not playing last week is just because why put him out there? That's kind of a sign of we don't want to give this guy that much run in the preseason, even in game 3, which isn't even that much of a game 3 anymore because outside of the teams yesterday, nobody has played their starters for like a half. So I have some interest in Montgomery, but on a slate where there's so many other guys who are probably going to get 10+ touches today, or at least 10+ opportunities between targets and touches, Montgomery, definitely a monster, but 6 touches, sat last week, 6 touches all preseason, sat last week. Seems like they're being more precautious with him. Keep an eye on Charkandrick West. So Indy is not likely to play most of their starters today. We already know Luck is not going to play. Brissett, probably no T.Y. Hilton, probably no Ebron, and probably no Marlon Mack is the way that they're leaning. There's not much running back depth due to a lot of injuries in Indy's backfield. They picked up Charkandrick West this week, former Chief, who is very, very serviceable and a good running back, especially for a bottom of the depth chart guy in a preseason game. There's not much here in the Indy backfield. Not a lot of their second, third, fourth stringers. Even Nyheim Hines has not been standing out that much in camp, not that much in preseason games. So Charkandrick West, he's a very risky play, and I probably don't even play him. I don't even know if he suits up today, but he's a guy who is going to be forced into opportunities if he does suit up because there's just not many guys back there. And you don't sign a guy for no reason. You don't bring a guy on to not at least let him play in whether it's this week or next week in week 4. You don't just sign a guy to then cut him without giving him any game opportunity. So that's interesting as well. And then I'll just say Alvin Kamara and Chris Carson, if the Saints or Seahawks come out saying that they're going to give their starters more run, if you're going to get 1.5 quarters out of Kamara or Carson, which right now that is not the case, but if they come out and say that and beat reporters tell us that, well, then Kamara and Carson, who's going to be a 3-down pass catching back now, are very, very interesting. So let's get into the guys I actually have interest in. Darwin Thompson. Darwin Thompson is my favorite rookie. More than David Montgomery, more than Darrell Henderson, more than Josh Jacobs. I love Darwin Thompson. He has already shot from being the 4th to 5th guy on this depth chart to the number 2 running back behind Damian Williams. And I'm not going to be shocked if by week 3 of the regular season, he's the Chiefs' starting running back. I mean, the kids look fantastic. Like I said, he's already become the number 2 running back. He is taking all of the first team snaps on the goal line. All of them. Damian Williams is not taking them. He's already jumped Carlos Hyde. Carlos Hyde, very good candidate to get cut. So Darwin Thompson, he had 6 touches week 1 for 51 yards. He had 4 carries last week. And his snaps kind of remain the same. I expect him to go up today. He's not as a prized possession as David Montgomery is to the Bears, although he is a very talented back. They have other running backs there, like Carlos Hyde, who they signed, like Damian Williams, who they signed last year to a 2-year deal, midway through last year. So, Darwin Thompson, I have a lot of excitement in today. Maybe not the highest overall opportunity count for him, but the skill set is just there, and I think the opportunity count is probably double what you get out of Montgomery today. Darwin Thompson is going to be a monster this year. Tevin Coleman. So if Jimmy G's playing the whole first half, I imagine that means the starters are playing the whole first half, if indeed that's the case. But here's the thing. They've been dealing with a lot of injuries, McKinnon, Breida, a lot of injuries, Morstead even to an extent, and even Jeff Wilson to an extent. Lots of injuries in this running backfield. So maybe they get a little bit precautious with Tevin Coleman. I can see that happening. Just give the wide receivers, some of the young guys, it's Debo, Samuel, and Jalen Hurts, some more extra run. Pettis, who's been struggling at the wide receiver position, give them extra room with Jimmy G and not so much the running back. But if we do have news that Tevin Coleman and the rest of the starters, which we usually get right before lock, are going to play the whole first half, he's clearly one of the best plays in the slate. Ryan Null for the Bears, I'll kind of point out here as a direct pivot off of David Montgomery. He's had 8 receptions and 5 carries in the first 2 weeks. 13 touches is pretty good. That's more than double Montgomery, right? I get it. Montgomery didn't play last week. But 11 targets in 2 weeks is something to keep an eye on for a pass-catching back who will garner no ownership today. 4 receptions in each of the past 2 weeks. New Orleans, Devin Ozigbo, he's had 11 touches and 3 receptions for 53 yards and a touchdown in week 2. That's really good. He finally looked good last week, got into the receiving game. That touchdown came in the receiving game, increased snaps from week 1 to week 2. He only had 4 total touches for 29 yards in week 1 on 5 opportunities. His opportunities more than doubled, his touches more than doubled. Got in the end zone last week. I think Devin Ozigbo is a good play who on a big slate like this might actually go lower owned than he should. Ty Montgomery for the Jets had 7 rushing attempts last week. I imagine that number to continue to grow and the snaps to continue to grow as they did from week 1 to week 2. He's getting all the hype out there. Ty Montgomery is a big reason why I have some worries for Le'Veon Bell. Because they want to utilize him in many of different ways. And he's kind of a gadgety type player, not the same as Bell, but very similar to Bell as a running back, wide receiver kind of hybrid. So I'd have worries with Le'Veon Bell drafting him that high. Also with Jamison Crowder in the slot, going to get a lot of shorter yards and completions that would kind of usually go to Bell on dump offs. And then also the pace of play should be faster for the Jets, which is good. Over the last week, they've kind of shown us that they're going to play faster, which gives me a little bit more comfortability in drafting Le'Veon Bell, but I still don't like him in season longs. But Ty Montgomery is interesting. I expect more and more opportunities this week. Austin Eckler and Justin Jackson, first 2 weeks, they've both pretty much been identical. 12 touches for Eckler, 14 touches for Justin Jackson, 12 for Eckler. Again, Melvin Gordon's going to hold out until the regular season. These will be the 2 running backs getting all the work in the first week of the season. And Eckler, 4 receptions in the preseason, 1 for Justin Jackson. Eckler is the more pass-catching friendly back. Jackson probably becomes more of a goal line and short yardage back, third down back maybe, if they're not in passing downs. I have interest in both of them today. Really, probably Eckler stands out more so over Jackson just due to his ability to catch the ball, and he'll probably get some extended run. No Phillip Rivers, though, today, but probably get some extended run with the Tyrod Taylor. Tony Pollard and Darrell Henderson Jr., the other 2 more rookies who are getting a ton of hype. Tony Pollard just balled out last week. The guy had 5 rushes for 42 yards. He caught a ball for 9 yards, so overall 6 touches on 6 opportunities for 51 yards. But a very similar situation to David Montgomery. Now, I think Tony Pollard is going to get extended run because it seems like Zeke is going to sign whatever contract that they offered him to be the second highest paid running back of all time behind Todd Gurley. So I think that they want Tony Pollard to get as much real game experience as he can because he's going to get some carries in the regular season if Zeke plays, and obviously if Zeke goes down. Pollard looks like a monster. If this is your first time tuning in, he has been an absolute talk of the town. Him and David Montgomery are the 2 most hyped running backs right now in the preseason. Big reason why is because in terms of rookies, Big reason why is because of the holdout from Zeke right now. So, but yeah, Tony Pollard's a monster. I expect actually more run than you would think in this game, just because it seems like Zeke is going to sign. And then probably the best play on the slate in terms of the running back position is Darrell Henderson Jr. 19 total touches this preseason. I drafted the kid in the third round to be the backup and potentially even the main running back on this team if Todd Gurley's knee starts to bother him and really inflame this season. But yeah, 19 touches in the preseason. His snaps increased from week 1 to week 2. His touches increased dramatically from week 1 to week 2. 7 touches week 1. 12 touches week 2. Last week they were split up in the air and on the ground. I love pass catching running backs. 6 rushes for 16 yards last week. 6 receptions on 6 targets for 38 yards. Yeah, you absolutely have to love that. You love to see it. The man had in the receiving game alone last week, 10 fantasy points. I expect even more from him, just hinted by McVay. McVay said after week 1 that they want to get him on the field way more. That was week 2. After week 2, they said they liked the performance and they want to continue to see more out of him. So the same to more run for Darrell Henderson Jr., the best running back play on the slate, in my opinion. Let's go to wide receiver. If you're still watching, hit the subscribe button. Check out down below Patreon if you want to get my tiers. They'll be updated throughout the day based on news, and you can better damn believe yourself that there's going to be more news. And as you can see with this wide receiver list, there's 25 guys that I have either some interest or full interest in right now. I'm not going through all 25 of these. We'll be here for an hour. But yes, down below, check out Patreon. Also check out the DFS course. Follow me on Twitter @SalvageDFS. There's the mid-roll ad for myself. Okay, I'm just going to pick pieces out of here. So couple of teams where I don't even want anything from the wide receivers just due to the quarterbacks that are going to be playing. One of those is Denver. Don't really want anything from Denver due to the quarterback positions, due to the guys not really standing out at all. New Orleans is another one. So New Orleans last week, they were all spread out. So loads of targets. Nobody had more than 3 targets, and one of those guys who had 3 targets was Emmanuel Butler, who was his first game back, first game playing in the preseason, so that's good to see, but he didn't catch any of those targets. And Devin Ezigbo, the running back, had 3 targets. So in terms of wide receivers, nobody was getting looked at. Little Jordan Humphrey has been a good player so far in the preseason, but he's only had 3 targets. He's caught all 3 for 60 yards and a touchdown, but he's really standing out. He's standing out by his week 1 touchdown catch at the end of that game. So nobody in New Orleans is being targeted heavily. Maybe that changes if Drew Brees and the starters get more run today, but I'm going to kind of be avoiding it. For Kansas City, obviously, Tyreek Hill has to be somewhat interesting to people. I have way more interest in Mecole Hardman, the rookie. There is news circling around Twitter. I don't know how much of it is fake news, but there is news that Tyreek Hill might actually be traded from this team because they have interest, or a lot of interest, in Mecole Hardman. Somebody kind of dropped the bomb saying that a top-end wide receiver is going to be traded that you don't expect. It's not going to be Odell. He just got traded. It's not going to be Julio with his contract. It's likely not A.J. Green with his injury concerns. And then a beat reporter came in and said, keep an eye on Hill, ... So Tyreek Hill, potentially on the trading block, who knows? But they've already kind of compared him to Mecole Hardman. Mecole Hardman, probably the more overall skilled wide receiver. Talented wide receiver is definitely Hill in terms of speed and just gadgety upside, burn anybody. But overall skill and definitely still talent is Hardman. I have a lot of interest in Hardman today. A guy who just on 4 drives already has 4 targets, 3 catches, and 49 yards and a touchdown from Patrick Mahomes. That's way more than Hill's been getting in terms of the preseason look. So yeah, I have a lot of interest in Mecole Hardman from Kansas City. Cody Thompson last week had 7 catches on 11 targets for Kansas City. That's pretty good. Week 1, he only had 2 targets though. So he had a lot of run in the second half. If the Chiefs starters play a lot this game, I imagine his run gets lesser and lesser, probably just fourth quarter run instead of overall second half run and a little bit of the second quarter he might have played. So yeah, Cody Thompson, 7 receptions, 11 targets. He is somebody who I think a lot of people are going to over-own today. I much prefer Mecole Hardman. Other players that are standing out, all the Jets players right now are going to be kind of questionable to me in terms of if I like them or not. Crowder, Enunwa, Anderson. If indeed they say something about Darnold playing a whole half, then yeah, those guys are going to be interesting. I'm going to like it as Anderson, Crowder, and then Enunwa in that order. Just Anderson has bigger play upside, but if they're not going to say anything and he's still going to just play 2 drives, Sam Darnold, then yeah, I have no interest in any of them. All right, let's keep going. So the most secure and safe cash plays and even tournament plays, since it's the preseason and nobody knows what's going on until 2,000 or 3,000 of you watch this. Also, hit the like button if you're still watching. It makes more people see it. It makes me grow. Hit the subscribe button. Hoping to hit 6,500 subscribers today. But for San Francisco, if Jimmy G is going to play a whole first half and then some, yeah, the young guys in Deebo Samuel, who's been looking good in the preseason, leading all the wide receivers in snaps, and Jalen Hurd, who's been looking good in the preseason, second in snaps only to Samuel, they're going to be interesting to me today. Now, Dante Pettis has not been getting on the field. We know that Goodwin is dealing with an injury, Marquise Goodwin, and then Dante Pettis has just looked terrible in camp, sliding down the depth chart. He should probably still start, so Dante Pettis will have some interest to me, but my bigger interest is going to be in Deebo Samuel, Jalen Hurd, who are going to still play in the first quarter, the second quarter, and potentially even into the third quarter if Jimmy G is still out there. Other guys are going to have interest as well, like a Kendrick Bourne, who Jimmy G has been saying good things about in camp. Kendrick Bourne is now third in the overall snap percentage for this team. So the San Francisco wide receivers, I'm probably going to have 4 of them in my tiers. Those are the 3 that stand out the most. Samuel and Hurd by far on top of that. Deon Cain. So Deon Cain, back-to-back preseasons, has just been looking absolutely fantastic. Definitely going to make the roster this year. Came out last week and absolutely shredded everybody. 7 catches, 80 yards on 9 targets. He played 46% of the snaps. The quarterback situation is worrisome there, right? No Brissett. You're going to get all of a Chad Kelly, but this is what Deon Cain was working with last week, all of a Chad Kelly and all of a Walker, the fortune quarterback. So I like Deon Cain as another guy who's a burner. Marcus Johnson also was on the field for the most snaps. So Deon Cain, 46% of the snaps on offense last week at wide receiver, but Marcus Johnson actually had 48%, so he's on the field the most. 3 catches for 32 yards on 6 targets. Look, 9 targets for Cain is fantastic. 6 targets for Johnson in a preseason game is also really, really good. Moving over to the Chargers, Artavius Scott and Andre Patton, they're fighting for the wide receiver 4 spot out there. They both played pretty much identical, really well last week. Scott had 4 catches, 64 yards on 5 targets, and then Patton 4 catches, 62 yards on 5 targets, but got in the end zone. That was Patton's first game action. They both are interesting to me today. Again, no Phillip Rivers for this weekend. He's not playing in week 3, as he shouldn't, as really none of these quarterbacks should, in my opinion. But yeah, they both carry some interest for me. Definitely not as much as the San Francisco guys. Definitely not as much as the Kansas City starters, though. Just trying to point out some other things. Dallas, I think Javea Johnson has been just brutally hurt the most by the poor quarterback play out there. Dak probably plays 1 to 2 drives. They're not going to put Dak out there, as he's not going to want to play that much when he's fighting for a contract. You get hurt, it just screws everything over, right? And also, just not even that for himself. There's nobody else behind Dak. The Cowboys can't afford to have him out there that long. Cooper Rush is a terrible quarterback, and so are all the other guys behind him. But Javea Johnson has been on the field a ton lately, and in the first 2 weeks of the season, he has 13 targets, 8 week 1, 5 last week. But these quarterbacks just stink. Like, they're not getting him the ball. It's not his fault. He's a huge target. He might actually be somewhat in play come the regular season on this Dallas depth chart. But yeah, he's just kind of getting hurt by quarterback play. If any of these guys can just get him the ball, 13 targets, 6.5 targets a week in the preseason, that's fantastic. He's a big receiver. Keep an eye on him. And then also, Devin Smith has been playing well as of right now. He had 11 targets. He has had 11 targets in 2 weeks, actually getting him the ball for 6 catches, 77 total yards, and a touchdown in Dallas. Devin Smith's probably going to be the guy who's been more consistent, so I prefer that for cash. But Javea Johnson is the more tournament-friendly play because hasn't done anything but getting so many opportunities. I imagine that starts to change. So yeah, that's it. Jalen Green's also somebody to point out. He played on 53% of the snaps last week, and he also caught 4 balls for 43 yards on 6 targets. So something to keep an eye on for Jalen Green. I believe that was his first week of action. And he was playing for the Rams. The other guy from the Rams was Cardell Hodges, who played a team-high 59% of the snaps. In week 1, he played really well. He had 3 catches for 48 yards and 6 targets. Last week, didn't get anything going. Again, the backup wide receiver or quarterback situation overall in Los Angeles for the Rams is terrible. But keep an eye on Hodges. Keep an eye on Jalen Green, as guys who are in a tournament will be lower owned. Hodges definitely very low owned because he did nothing in terms of opportunity last week. In terms of receptions or targets, but he had 59% of the snaps. That's very, very good for a guy who played well week 1, is now going to go under the radar for the same opportunity he's been getting all preseason. I like Hodges a decent amount as a tournament play. So yeah, that's wide receivers. I didn't name all of them, but we'll talk about, and I'll rank all of them in the tiers later today. Tight end, not a ton of interest in tight end. Look, if Travis Kelce's going to play 1.5 to 2 quarters with the Chiefs starters, you just pencil him in. There's nobody else even close to him. Hunter Henry's another starting tight end who plays today, but likely not a lot. I don't think Hunter Henry plays more than 2 drives today, maybe 3. Travis Kelce potentially can play 5 drives today, and that is goddamn good. So yes, Travis Kelce in 1 to 2 catches can make it the best tight end on the slate, and he doesn't even have to get in the end zone. Like, he can have 2 catches for 45 yards and be the best tight end on the slate, which is crazy. Blake Bell is the Travis Kelce Jr. right now. Blake Bell has looked fantastic. What did the Chiefs need? Did the Chiefs really need another big pass-catching friendly tight end on their team? Like, this is crazy. He's looked fantastic. I call him Travis Kelce Jr. in my notes. 4 catches for 70 yards on 6 targets so far this preseason. Looks absolutely dominant. He's averaging, I don't even know, like 18 yards per reception. They're all just great catches, beautiful catches, and he's also been able to stiff arm people. Literally looks like Travis Kelce Jr. out there. Those guys are my main interest at tight end. I'll list a couple other ones. Cody McElroy for Dallas has had 10 targets through 2 games. Out of those 10 targets, he's converted 4 for 45 yards. That's actually something to keep an eye on. 10 targets for a tight end in the preseason through 2 games is huge. Jarrell Adams for Houston He's had 8 targets in 2 weeks. He's converted on 5 of them. That's pretty good. And then last week, Hale Hentges had 4 catches for 34 yards on 4 targets, but he led all the tight ends for Indy with 38% of the snaps. Week 1, he had 1 catch for 19 yards on 2 targets. So you see he's had 6 targets, 5 receptions, but he's getting a lot of snap run. Right now, it's Kelsey and Bell. They stand above everybody else. McElroy, I do like the 10 targets that he's got, as well as Adams' 8 targets. So that's it for tight end. Again, lots of information. It is now 5:39 a.m. East Coast time. Been up since 3 a.m. Girlfriend thought I was crazy getting up at 3 a.m. to do this, but this is what you got to do. If you're doing this full time, this is what you got to do, and I love it. So energized, 2 cups of coffee in me at 3 a.m. The brain's probably going to blow up some point today, but I appreciate you tuning in. I'll be live at 5:30 p.m. East Coast time today for about 45 minutes to talk about this slate. Come there, come live, come with all of your questions. I appreciate you guys tuning in right now. Before you leave, I do urge you, follow me on Twitter at SalVetriDFS. Ask me any questions that you have over there about the slate. Ask me any questions that you might have over there about my NFL course, which is listed down below, or the Patreon package for the tiers listed down below. I highly recommend both of them, obviously, because I made them. So thank you. I appreciate it. My name's Sal. You already know that.